Welcome to the FasCat podcast. I'm your host, Frank Overton, and we have a special guest on the podcast today, Phil Gaimon. He's been a FasCat athlete for 11 years. Thanks for putting up with me all these years, Phil.
Back at you, buddy.
Folks, that's a long relationship. I mean, a lot of marriages don't go that long.
It's true. Yeah, we've never been divorced. We haven't even had a fight, have we?
No,
The
not
day's
really.
young.
Yes. Yes, we are still young and fun in that regard. But listeners, today we're gonna check in with Phil. We're gonna hear what he's training for, and we're gonna kind of reminisce and wax poetic about how he's using CoachCat, how that differs from the way that we used to coach back in the days. We're gonna compare that to some world tour cycling and what they're doing for marginal gains, and just get into all things training and coaching with Phil. So, yeah, thanks for being here, buddy.
Yeah, great to be back. I can't believe it's been since 2019 that I've been on your podcast. It's wild.
I know time
I
really
talk to you like
flies.
once a week.
I know we should do this quarterly or something.
Yeah, we can't record those.
Yeah. So listeners, go back if you really want to go back in the archive. 2018 was when we first kicked off this podcast, and Phil came on State of the Cycling Union, and I think a year later we did a 2019 episode with I don't even remember what we talked about.
Yeah, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, that's right. Let us know.
We
Yeah.
haven't aged a bit, though.
Yeah. Yeah. So, tell us what you've been up to. What's going on in your life? And yeah, fill us in.
Yeah, I try to pace my seasons, and I do consider myself like the season. So I have kind of an off thing, the same pattern that I built in racing. I just kind of never quite deviated from. At least I've deviated back into it after letting it go for a few years and being overtrained. So now, like, I'll take my break in the fall and I'll build back up. And the last couple of years I've put together like some endurance goals, some like super long climbs for the beginning of the year. So January, February. Last year I did Mauna Kea, and now we're doing. This year we did Haleakala, and I just got back from a trip to Bucerias, Mexico. That was also just like a 2.5 hour climb. So that's the training for that is mostly endurance. So that's what kind of base is for. And then as the year goes on, I'll move into sort of shorter, sharper efforts that need more tailored training than just like good, hard, long rides.
And you have the KOM at all three of those climbs you just mentioned, right?
Yeah. I don't talk about the ones I miss.
Yeah. And so, what are you training for? What's coming up for you? What are you
So,
training for?
so up next, now that I've done good base, I'm happy with my endurance. I've been working on this. I've been wanting to do this project for years. Of like, I never raced the Tour de France. I never got selected for that. I've done a couple of the super famous climbs, but I never raced them. I never went for like a time on them. And my YouTube channel, I wanted to do it when I could do it right. So it's going to be a series called Phil Wins the Tour de France, and I
Nice.
win because I'm not bumping elbows with all those guys. I win because I'm setting my best time on these climbs, whatever that is. I'm not pretending I can get the KOM on Alpe d'Huez, for example. But I win because I'm enjoying the culture. I'm trying the wine. I'm bringing my wife, and I'm just going to have. It's going to be 3 weeks in France, and I'm going to hit the Galibier, Ventoux, Tourmalet, and Alpe d'Huez. And then we'll go to Nice for a little crepe on the Mediterranean on the way out. But that's the plan. I've been stewing on how to make this work this for a couple years, but here we are.
Yeah.
That'll be this June.
Oh man, that sounds like an awesome trip. Can you bring your coach? Is that allowed?
I mean, yeah, we'll figure it out if you want to come.
You probably need someone to hold your water bottles or yeah. Yeah, speaking of Nice, what do you think of Paris Nice and the Americans?
I'm always down for Matteo winning on home turf. Magnus seems like a great. It's cool. It's funny how like the the new generation of Americans sort of popped up, and the developmental track that I think like my generation kind of didn't pull off in some ways. Like the batch of Americans now, I feel like is a notch better than the batch of Americans when I was over there. Um, and I'm not sure exactly what that is, but there's a lot of different variables.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, 2 years in a row, and then Magnus coming. I mean, That's got to be his biggest win of his career.
So
And
far, yeah.
to go 1-2 like that, it's like a big exclamation point. And I think like US cycling doesn't pop like it did during your generation. We knew, how good all your peers were. I just feel like Matteo and McNulty and Magnus, they're just underrated, and they're just yeah, I don't know why, but their results speak for themselves.
For sure. I what it looked like to me is like the USA the main path to the World Tour in my era was the USA Cycling development team and going to Belgium and that whole move. And I think like guys were pulled into that or gravitated to that, and then they never quite had the resources and the really the what's shown to be a better development track is USA Cycling's program being like a little more hands off. So like
Yeah.
McNulty and Matteo, they were there for the U23 Paris-Roubaix and the World Championships, but they weren't like living in a dorm half the year.
Mm.
They're letting kind of the pro teams and the development teams do their job, and then pulling the guys. So really, like taking a step back from USA Cycling, I think was beneficial to to that batch of riders.
Yeah. It seems like talent rises quicker than it did during your generation, where the development was still given until they were like 25 years of age. But now with, Pogacar winning at, 19
Right,
and 20, it's like, well, yeah, that's
right.
sped up a lot.
These days, if you're not World Tour at 18, you're behind.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, Who's your pick for Milan San Remo coming up?
Um, is Tade racing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
him then. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I don't it's hard for like he's gonna have to go solo or a Vanderpool if
Mhm.
if Tade can't stick it. And Tade's so marked and there's a lot of green or a lot of runway from the climb to the finish.
Yeah.
Between those two, I feel like it's kind of a toss up.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's so cool about Milan San Remo is it's so dynamic, and it's like, do you go on the climb and win from
Yeah.
there, or can the sprinters pull you back? It's like it's a I remember Frankie Andreo, who famously said it's the easiest race to finish and the hardest to win.
Yeah, I love a race that like either a climber or a sprinter could win it. That's I think that's
Yeah.
hard to do for race organizers and courses, but that one definitely achieves it.
Yeah. Well, it'll be exciting to watch. So okay, so you're training for long climbs in France. I looked at listeners a couple of statistics. So the Alpe d'Huez KOM is 35:56 by Jack Burke, and he's just ahead of Sepp Kuss. The Tourmalet is 51:13. The Ventoux is just under an hour at 59:19. So how are you using CoachCat with, to s- be specific in your training? Can you tell us a little bit about that, and how does that differ from maybe the way that we trained back in like, the World Tour days in 2015?
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to be dropping for those efforts. Like they're shorter than the long endurance stuff I've been doing. We're talking like, Haleakala was 330 watts, something like that
Mhm.
I averaged. So I'm going to have to do a lot more than that for 35 minutes, 36 minutes on Alpe d'Huez, optimistically. So we're going to definitely bring the intensity up a notch. But I've just put it in the Coach Cat that June I want to by June I want to improve my threshold, and so Coach Cat knows what it is now, and it's just going to give me kind of tiers, and here's your 3 week build, here's your rest week, keep going, and then some days maybe the weather's coming up, it looks bad this afternoon, so it's like, hey, I want to do the group ride this morning. Should I do some endurance after, or tomorrow looks messy, so like I'll tell Coach Cat like I need a workout today to substitute, so it can move things around, it can customize, um, and I don't have to send you. I guess the biggest difference is I used to have to send you a panic text like, "Hey, it's raining. What do I do for my
Right.
training today?"
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, well, you can be thankful that you were inspirational in the development of Coach Cat to protect my inbox or
there we go.
text messages. Also, your Whoop too, which we'll talk about here in a second.
Yep.
But like, so listeners, Tour de France climbing threshold, you're going to want to be doing climbing intervals, and Phil is going to do a block of base kind of after this little mini break after you did this string of long climbs,
Mhm.
and then hit the intensity. A lot of threshold work. And then also for reference listeners, Haleakala was 2.5 hours,
Yeah,
actually 224 if I recall
something
correctly,
like that. Yeah,
at 330 watts. And so if you think of the critical power curve, everyone, when he's training for a 35-minute KOM or a 60-minute KOM, the duration is shorter, so the intensity is higher. And we know from years of data, your FTP, your 60-minute power is in the, let's say 385. It's been as
yeah,
high as 400, 405 in the early days. And so we'll really target a lot of threshold work intensity in intervals in and around there. And when it's even shorter, you know, like you'll go even harder, probably like north of 400 watts for like the Alpe d'Huez
right.
KOM.
Right. Yeah. Being able to, if I could get back over 400 for an hour, I'd be real happy. That's kind of a goal, and that still won't get me the KOM on Von 2, I don't think.
Mhm.
I think Tade's doing more than 400, weighing less than me. But
Yeah.
that's like if I can be close to my best, I'll be real happy.
That sounds like what it's all about these days, going over there and having fun and just being your best and enjoying it.
Yeah, I did enough. I did enough racing. Now I want to see my best and not try to compare it to other people's best. It never works out.
Yeah. Tell me what you're doing nutritionally to be at your best power to weight ratios.
Sure. It's funny how that's evolved since I raced. There was my era, it was all the fasted training and fat burning metabolism, which never quite got along with me. Well, nobody liked it, to be
No,
honest.
no,
Like you do a fasted ride and you're just you don't feel good the whole time.
yeah,
You're not fueled, and that's intentional. And that was to make your body. Well, I don't even need to explain the science because it was all made up and bullshit. Since then, and I remember even at the time being like, don't Ironmen just have gels for however long an Ironman is? Like, why can't we do that? And somehow, like cycling was behind triathlon in that. In the last couple of years, they've been like, oh yeah, we're allowing carbs again, and it's gone the other way. So now, like during races, they're having 3 times the sugar that we did.
mm,
Uh, there was this whole thing back then of you're not supposed to drink your carbs, you're supposed to eat your carbs, and so we're eating like cheese paninis and ham. Like I sound like I'm 1,000 years old, but this wasn't that long ago. They're
yeah,
giving us like cheese sandwiches in the feed zone. And so now it's gels, and there's more. To be fair, there's more science. They've developed the hydration and the shots, stuff like that. There's more technology or more. They're more digestible, I guess, would be the answer. But now, yeah, they're eating more. They're eating less real food and more sugar, which probably isn't as good for the teeth. But otherwise, like you're just burning it off.
yeah,
And you run hotter and you can kind of maintain the same power for longer.
yeah, yeah. So listeners, like it's this the thing that's changed since Phil was racing in the World Tour to now everyone's like eat up and 80 to 120 grams of carbohydrate per hour. And for a lot of these guys it takes, I mean, you're eating every 15 to 20 minutes. It takes practice, it takes a lot of work. And then for the listeners out there, they're doing long gravel, long fondo, the same physiology nutritionally applies. So work on it. We've recorded podcasts about increasing your carbohydrate intake during your long rides, and that's because the science is now fairly clear, not fairly, but it's really clear about how to optimize your fueling for these long rides. Yeah. So and then how about what's it look like in Phil's kitchen on the evening before uh, like a big ride, or even the morning before, like you go out and set one of these KOMs. And how
Yeah,
I know, like, how are you gonna tackle that over in France, where the food is different than LA?
I mean, they got carbs over there too. They're yeah. I think normally it depends. Like if I'm doing an early start, for a KOM and it's a shorter thing, I probably won't have breakfast. I'll have an extra carb serving the night before, whatever the local carb is. I'll just give me an extra side of rice, give me an extra side of pasta, something like that. I'll kind of prep for it. If I'm doing it at home, I'll have the same thing we used to do. They would let us have carbs before races, so it would be 3 hours before the race. My go to was always like oatmeal or grits with some scrambled eggs in it, um, and that's 3 hours before. And then you get into something kind of sugary in the hour before the start, and then you get a caffeine half an hour before the start, and all kind of hits at the same time.
Hmm.
And then once you're going, you're just staying on top of it with the sugar. So I have like the high carb first endurance. I'll just keep that going the whole ride, and then gels like every 15 to 30 minutes, depending on how fast. The first endurance has like a little caffeine shot that I
Hmm.
forget the carbs in it, but my move was every 15 minutes.
Nice, nice. And for the listeners out there, what's like your favorite go-to dinner recipe the night before a big ride? Like, what does like that entail?
I mix it up. I don't have like I have a go-to breakfast. I don't have a
Hmm.
go-to dinner.
Yeah,
Um, it's kind of whatever's going on. Yeah. But like something basic like rice is always solid. Normally, like I don't have a lot of carbs at dinner, but if for the early ride, I'll kind of add that in.
nice. So let's before we go into talking about these KOMs and the times and how you're going to approach them, real quick. So you've talked about how you're going to use CoachCat to build a custom training plan to really work on your threshold climbing in the timing for your June event. But remind me again, or just tell the listeners, can you give us some examples of like your week to week training and how you use CoachCat on the fly to not have to text me, um, like when you can't do the workout or the weather's bad or you're feeling tired or when you're feeling really good.
Sure. I'll go in and I'll say like, this week I want to do 15 hours focused on threshold training, and it'll give me those workouts. And then maybe you know there'll be a meeting that I have to do in the middle of the day on Thursday, and so I'll send it. I'll realize that on Thursday. It's like I don't have the 3 hours today. Can we switch that to Friday? And
Hmm.
CoachCat will sort of move it around, like, okay, they're giving me a recovery day now, or it'll give me a shorter interval workout that I can get before my call on Thursday, and then they'll make up for it. Just kind of move the hours around, so I'm not guessing, and I'm not, because I do have the kind of OCD, like I want to complete all of my training exactly. So like me moving around on the fly, even if it might land in the same place or close to it, like having
Hmm.
it in the calendar, I'm accountable, and I know I'm on track.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to do the recipe thing too. There is CoachCat does have all the recipes in there. I need to start
Yeah.
doing that for dinner. So I'll try that in France. I'll be like, all right, I'm here's the three things I like on this French menu.
Hmm.
What's good for the climb I have tomorrow morning? I'll drop those
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah, I'm working on a nutritional, personalized nutrition training tip right now as we speak of how you can ask Coach Cat in the chat. I have a big 4 hour ride tomorrow. What should I eat? And I would like to, maybe have salmon and asparagus and rice and how, like, give me the recipe for that.
Right.
And it's like, so it's personalized nutrition based on your preferences. You got to like ask and put in, what you're kind of thinking, but
Mhm.
yeah, you can get any and all recipes out of the AI chat. It's pretty slick.
Yeah, that'll be good. I'll be like, I don't like snails, and it'll say you're in France.
Right.
Bad news for you.
You could ask Coach Cat about the nutritional content of snails. I think it's a lot of fat, maybe
Oh,
a little bit of
well,
protein.
they're for sure they're cooked in butter. So
So there you go.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not scared of fat.
So I was going to ask you something that it reminded me of that. So okay, you're working on the fly. You're able to adjust, and you know, I remember like as late as 2017, we would have these conversations all the time. Like, okay, like I can't do this on this day, or it's smoky, or you whatever. And it created like this extra pressure of how are we going to get in my 22 hours this week? But this one 5 hour ride is getting all messed up. And
Right.
now you can just do it on your own. You don't have to worry about
Right.
reaching out and wondering
Yeah.
how to do it. You just get that answer
It saves
immediately.
time, and there's like it's juggling, which is just accepting reality that training is is never as linear and as standardized and as organized as you want it to be, as it might look in a spreadsheet
Mhm.
or in the original plan. Like part of training is being somewhat adaptable and not that OCD. You just don't have the progression that you want. That's one thing I learned from my racing career is like here's the goal and here's the plan to it, and like it just never as solid and as controlled as you want it to be. So CoachCat kind of accepts that and allows for it and makes it cleaner.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you have a 24-hour week and you don't follow the plan exactly as it's written, but you still get in your 24 hours, it's all good.
Yeah, you still get 24 hours. You still get like, the intervals that we're going to be on this day or on this day.
Mhm.
But at the end of it, like you've kind of checked them all. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it still works.
Let's talk a little bit about how you use your Whoop for your recovery, specifically sleep and HRV.
Yeah, then that'll build that connects into CoachCat. So Whoop it's tracking my sleep. It's tracking, how effective my sleep is. And there's a lot of like same when you write the training plan, there's a lot of intangibles or things that could happen that you
Mhm.
don't know I'm going to have a bad night of sleep on Wednesday, and so it might be I woke up and I'm supposed to have like a sharp interval workout Thursday morning, and that's clearly a bad idea if I only slept a few hours. If I was say I had a flight or one too many to drink, whatever, and like this is the wrong day for this workout. Let's move it around. So
Mhm.
CoachCat already has information and can consider that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that your Whoop with regards to like green and red and your HRV, does that help guide you as well? Because I know we have a lot of listeners that are using their Whoop and they love it.
Yeah, for sure. It's I I look at it every day. It's like kind of the first thing I do when I wake up. As I'm like making coffee, I'll check my Whoop thing, and if it's green, I'll go with the plan. But sometimes it's like, okay, it's super green today. Like let's go from 4 hours
Super
to
green.
5 hours.
Yeah.
Or like a couple weeks ago, I had a 4 by 15 minute workout, and I was on like a 94%. And I was like, we're gonna make it 5 by 15,
Yeah.
and I made that call after the fourth. I was like, yeah, I got one more in me. I'm not going to argue with that. Whereas if it was yellow, I'd kind of maybe do the minimum to complete my workout and go home. So it's that little bit of extra uh, juice or recovery that you kind of adjust your workouts with.
Yeah. Right on. Let's talk about these KOMs. 35 minutes and 56 seconds Alpe d'Huez. Do you have an idea what you think you'll go in under?
No, I haven't. I haven't looked. I haven't had a close look at it. I'll see. I think when I get closer to June, I'll see what my power is and what I
Mhm.
think I can do. And then honestly, like I always loaded in the Wahoo Live segment, and I get started and
Mhm.
I pace. You can sort of see pretty quick if you're going to get it or not,
Yeah.
or if you're going to be close, and kind of adjust my pacing as I go. Because conditions will still get you. If there's a headwind, like that's your day,
Mhm.
um, and you got to sort of accept that.
Yeah. I'll never forget when you did the KOM at Lookout Mountain and it was like 38 degrees,
So annoying.
so windy, and you were doomed before you even started
Yeah, I
because it
flew
was
all the way
just
out there, and it was just like, yeah, this is this. And, I don't to get the KOM. I should really like sit there for 4 days and wait for the right conditions, but that's not
right.
how the real world works.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go up and like make a good video and suffer and put out the best power I can.
Yeah.
That was frustrating.
Do can and you on your speaking of Wahoo Live segments, now you can get your progress not only towards the KOM, but you can also program in like your PR or Does it work that way
Yeah,
if you
if you've
want to?
attempted the KOM before, so it wouldn't work for any of these because I haven't done them yet.
Right.
But it'll show you your time relative to the KOM, or if it's like a climb you've done before, like all my local ones, I kind of have starred just for reference, and it'll show you're 2 minutes behind your PR
Mhm.
or 2 minutes up on it. So it definitely like a good tool to race against yourself or against Tade,
Right.
if
Yeah,
that's
with
the boat you put
probably
yourself in.
three teammates in front of them
Right.
at the bottom. I love the Strava live segments. It's super fun and motivating. And I have athletes go out and do Strava rides, and I have them pick their
Hmm.
favorite segment and then try to go and get it once in a while. It's like a really great alternative to just bashing yourself week in, week out with intervals.
Yeah, there's it's funny because you could do intervals to get your heart rate up to do like a really hard workout. There's racing,
Hmm.
which you can't do whenever you want. The group rides are really good. I did a group ride here yesterday, and it's funny. Like I kind of attacked on this climb with 30 minutes to go, and I was by myself the last half hour. So it's like,
Yeah.
why did I go to the group ride? But I also know like I'm going harder because there's dudes behind me somewhere.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like kind of embarrassing to accept that, but it's also human nature.
Hmm.
But I know I'm getting a better ride than I would have if I just had like a prescribed power.
Yep.
But then the next one is, if I'm going for a KOM, if I'm going for a PR, if I'm setting my best top to bottom on a climb for the day, you can just bury yourself. It's human nature. You can bury yourself more, get a harder workout in with a little bit more of a target um, or a
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah, it's that extrinsic motivation, and yeah, I think you struck on something really key. And it's a group ride with the extrinsic motivation, but you already have identified the segment which you want to try to, in your case, KOM, but for our listeners, like where they want to PR. I do this group ride out here in Connecticut, and they choose segments before the group ride, and they're like, okay, here's the route, but then here's the segment
Oh,
on the route. And it's super fun because it gives the group ride like some structure,
that's
and then you
cool.
everyone knows when they're gonna like essentially start racing and going for it. And then of course afterwards you can check the leaderboards and
Right.
all that fun stuff.
That's
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, I like that. It's a good twist.
Yeah. So okay, so that's Alpe d'Huez, which is going to be the shortest one
Hmm.
that you'll try. What can you tell us about like Tourmalet and the Ventoux that are 50, 60 minutes?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be much different. It's all just like what's my threshold, what's my hour long power. I can't on those. It's probably not going to be smart to look at the live segment at the bottom where Tade might have had someone doing a turn and burn to set him up for the fast time. It might just be like I'm not going to go 450 watts at the bottom of a 50-minute climb. So it'll be controlling and doing my best effort,
Yeah.
and whatever the conditions are on the day. But at that point, yeah, it'll be the haze in the barn from the work I've done. Now through the last 20 years of my life through June.
Yeah. So in other words, you're going to pace it very similar to a traditional KOM effort, kind of like a time trial where you're going to start hard and try to keep it steady all the way till the end.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
just a classic time trial kind of effort.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that's exciting and fun. Do you think you'll go back and ride them more than once? Like where you may pre-ride one just to get a feel and then do one for an attempt, kind of like what we did with Haleakala and Mauna Kea, where, well,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, I didn't pre-ride those.
yeah,
those were all guesses.
those were one and done. What was the one where we did like
In general, I try to recon all of them.
yeah,
Uh, at least like if it's a dynamic chaos, like if it's a steady Alpe d'Huez 7-8% the whole way up, like I've done that climb 1,000 times, even if I've
yeah,
never done that version of it.
mhm,
So I don't need to kind of recon that. The one I just did in Mexico, that video is going up soon. Um, that one I wish I'd kind of pre-rode. It was like I knew the bottom half was pretty dynamic. There's a lot of like ups and downs, so you kind of pace that. I wasn't ready for the last hour was this 10.5% cobblestone dirt mess. And I
Mhm.
would have, I knew to save for the last hour because it was steep. I didn't know, I would have saved more if I knew how bad the terrain was, because you can float over the cobbles more with more power.
Yeah.
So I kind of messed that up. And if I'd reconned, I probably would have found a minute or two.
Yeah.
So I'll look at each of those as I go. I should have time to kind of recon the day before, at least, ride it easy to have a look at it. But I also know, like, I know how to read the chart on the thing, like, oh, there's a dip there. I know to pace for that.
Mhm.
Um, I can put little cues in my head, or the Wahoo showing a live segment, like, oh, there's a downhill part coming up, so I'll push a little bit more.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
blissful
You're
part of
not gonna,
climbs.
it just dawned on me as we're talking about Alpe and the Ventoux, you can ride those on Zwift. You're not gonna use, virtual training for recon, are you?
No, that wasn't, at least that hadn't occurred to me until you mentioned that this very moment. Maybe I should.
Now that I
Um,
think about it, the Alpe d'Huez Zwift KOM is less than 35 minutes. So it's faster virtually than it is in the real world.
Okay, that sounds like probably a flaw in the Zwift version, unless it was Tade on Zwift. The F1 guys do like video games to practice their stuff. Like if the courses are realistic enough,
Yeah.
it's probably better than nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and you're not gonna like double attempt them. Like it's like you're just gonna do a one and done and just let it be what it's gonna be.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have my flights booked and my hotels sorted out before I get there. So with a little wiggle room of maybe I'm around Alpe d'Huez for 4 days, I can pick the best day. Because I also want to do, like, I'm going to do the tourism, the travel component.
Mhm.
I'm going to ride around with my wife and check things out. So I can move things around a little bit within those based on my fitness and my
Yeah.
fatigue from the previous climb. But
Yeah.
it's going to be 4 climbs in like 19 days, something like that on the ground.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
kind of tight, especially some 6 hour drives in there.
Do you use any, weather tools, to that you could share with the listeners, for like, this day is gonna be better than that day, or, this time of day is gonna be better than, you know
Yeah, I don't. My weather tool is like, doing the thing is, all those, every time I try to do that, like, the weather forecasts are so bad that it
Mhm,
kind of just it's just more work, and then it's equally likely to backfire. I think especially when it's like the little like wind pockets are.
mhm.
I don't know. I've tried it a few times, and I know there are people who use those apps to
Yeah.
some success. But especially, like, as it gets steeper, the wind doesn't matter as much,
Mhm.
and I just don't have that much control over when I'm going for what.
Yeah, yeah. Man, when you just said that, I just remembered, in the news, like, last week, remember Mount Washington?
Oh yeah,
There were 100-mile sustained winds for 4 days straight, and just, like, a couple weeks ago, and
yeah.
there was images of the scientists that were working up there, like, they went outside to check it out, and they had to, like, lay down on the ground and crawl because the wind was that strong.
Mount Washington's a special place. Yeah, I've been up there when there's like, and it's June, July, August when those events happened, and
Yeah,
I've seen a glimpse of what can go on. I've never obviously done the winter,
yeah,
but it's crazy because it's just like a beautiful New England day at the bottom, and then at the top you're on the surface of the moon, and it's
yeah.
it's high wind. Yeah, there's something about that spot. But I've people will share it, will send me like, oh, yeah, Mount Washington is doing this right now. I'm like, oof.
Yeah, I think it's, like, the highest, recorded wind speed in the North America,
That's correct. Yeah.
belongs to Mount Washington.
Yep.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah. Thankfully, not a day I was up there.
Yes. All right. Well, so that's your Tour de France trip. That's going to be super exciting. And moving on, let's shift gears a little bit because we've kind of talked about training then and now. And what would you share to the listeners for what advice you would give them about your training now compared to like what you did, 10 years ago as it relates to like their improvement?
Yeah, I think one thing that's sort of good. There's fewer races happening now. It's really easy. I loved racing. That was the job, and it'd be not exactly racing into shape, but just like all my training was planned around the race coming up this weekend, and you'd build into that, but you still have to rest for it a little bit. And then once you're pro, your whole kind of training program is built around, this 7-day race, this 10-day race, whatever. And I've found, even towards the end of my racing career, I started to realize that, like, if you just leave me alone for 6 weeks and let me train, I'm
Yeah.
going to do better. And now that I don't race at all anymore, I've been surprised at how well I can still perform with 0 races in my belt. There's no race days as training. I would have thought, like, oh, if I'm not racing, I'm just going to lose a ton of fitness every year, and I really haven't done that. As long as you're doing a couple endurance rides here and there, you're doing your intensity, you're still maxing out. As long as you have the motivation and the right workouts, I guess that's the main take. Is I would have raced less and been more strategic about which races I did. Not
Yeah.
that my teams would have allowed that, but
Right.
but I would have pushed back on, and I think you see the pro teams now, like, they're doing these extended altitude camps.
Mhm.
At least, like, the key riders in my era were already doing that, and
Mhm.
now I think they're probably spreading that to more of the team, rather than just throwing guys into, like, 80 race days here and there. You're never going to perform if you're racing that much.
Yeah. I mean, thanks to you, I came to the realization when you, like in 2015, 2016, 17, we had this window to train in between the end of your season and training camp. But after
Yeah,
training camp happened, like we just had to have you in this state of race readiness
yeah.
because
It's damage control, essentially.
yeah, like
Yeah,
we would have like these elaborate conversations of, are you going to do Tour of Catalunya or,
right.
this, and let's plan for that. And you can train these 2 weeks. And it just never went that way.
Yeah,
And you got to come home after US Pro and you had like 4 weeks, and then maybe even July, but that was like, it's just like, hurry up and rest, hurry up and get back into shape.
right.
But yeah, the racing was really the training.
Yeah, I think my schedule, like, my last year for sure, like, I wasn't really set up for success. So that was just like chasing my tail. But,
Yeah.
like, in 2015, when I was on Optum, I remember there was a part I was like, I want to target Tour of California. Let me go to Big Bear and do my 4-week altitude thing. And the team sent me to, like, Crit Nats instead. The team time trial in Crit Nats on the East Coast. There was a flight delay.
Yeah.
I slept on the floor in Dallas, and it was just like I just went from 8th overall Tour of Cali to 15th.
Right.
Like, you just watch that happen, in just this kind of short sighted thing, that you can't get those back. But
Yeah. I think I remember also, speaking of altitude camps, there was the altitude camp where they sent you up there and it was raining the whole time.
oh yeah, we got nothing done.
And
Yeah,
like the coaches, we were like, yeah, do what your team tells you to do. But then your team was like, do what your coach tells you to do. So it was like this, who's on first? Like, what are
yeah,
we going to tell Phil to do? And but it was raining the whole time and you couldn't do anything. And it was
yeah.
just like this.
No, they drove us up to the top of Sierra Nevada, in Spain, and we're just sitting at 8,000 feet, and it's dumping snow.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that didn't work.
That was a
Well,
wasted week.
hmm
Yeah, good times.
yeah, you have a lot of those. These
Yeah.
days, I'd ask CoachCat what to do.
Yeah.
I'd say
Well,
bigger head
speaking of
against the
that
wall.
though, we've developed a good, somewhat of an altitude protocol, over the years based on like here's what we tried to do then, and
Hmm.
tell the listeners about your Big Bear altitude camps and how you do those and use those to your advantage.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I, I guess it was trial and error a little bit, and different protocols might work for different people, and based on where you are when you start. Um, there's been times that so Big Bear is like kind of the ideal training altitude. It's 7,000 feet. Um, so you can get low, you can still put out power at that altitude, but you're getting the adaptations that you want, in your blood and whatever else goes on up there. So I kind of found, like, if I have a big goal, give me 3 weeks. Like, 2 weeks, I can do a lot. Like, 3 weeks is ideal, and I can get up there. I can do the kind of start out easy, build into a little bit of endurance as my body is adapting whatever's going on. The first couple days you're going to be fatigued up there. You have to obey that. Then you can get into good endurance. I wouldn't really even bother with like the super sharp stuff because you're just not
Mhm.
getting anything done. But threshold and below, you can just hit that pretty hard for a couple of weeks, and then you come down, and whatever the next race was, I would win it if I had that protocol dialed.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I do now before like I'm out Washington or uh, in the winter. I'm not going up there; it's snowing, but so I didn't get to do that for like Haleakala, and probably going to still be cold before the France trip.
Yeah.
But that's where I'll go after France. I'll kind of recoup in
Mhm.
Big Bear to build up for whatever I've figured out in the fall.
Speaking of that, is there like, aside from these Tour de France KOMs, I mean, is there any like local one or perhaps one in any part of the world that you got your eye on that you'd like to give a run at?
The local ones here, they're all so hard now. like like between me setting like crazy times when I was freshly retired, and then the handful of like world tour like A-listers who come through here,
Yeah.
the young Americans, or even like Geraint Thomas was training here in the off seasons, and Froome was coming out. Not that they like went for any KOMs, but like the local neighborhood one I have here, like Pidcock sniped it from me, and it's just like, well, there's nothing I can do about that. um, so yeah, locally, I've for the most part like given up. But if there was a good tailwind day that on a certain climb, be like, you know what, maybe I put the speed suit on and have a whack at it for my workout. But there's like 10 of them that I would, I'd trade my left nut for for a good time on at this point.
One can dream.
Yeah.
Yes.
Worldwide, it's the France ones are the top.
Mhm.
Just all those like super famous climbs that I haven't really attempted yet. It'd be fun to go back to Japan. Like I want to do Mount Fuji. That'd be a really
Yeah.
cool climb to go for. They have a
That
couple
would be
events there.
cool.
There's a few ways up. It's complicated. I had a trip that planned for 2020 um, that didn't take place
Oh
to
yeah,
Japan.
the COVID year.
Yep.
Yeah. That was the Everesting year.
Yeah, that was an effective pivot, but
Yes.
yeah,
The 8-9 minute climb 54 times.
yeah, yeah. We're not doing
Wow.
that anymore either.
Yeah, yeah. That's good. So what cycling trends excite you the most, and what are the ones that make your eyes roll?
Um, I mean, I guess we talked about nutrition already. I definitely like that. Um, I like that we're not starving each other anymore. People are allowed to fuel. I think that's like it's both healthy
Yeah,
and effective. Like
yeah.
just the whole like power to weight conversation that was taking place. Like the whole sport was pretty anorexic for a long time,
Mhm.
and that was just like it sucked to be in that, and it kind of sucked to talk about it because it just didn't anyway. It didn't seem good. Um, so now we're allowed to eat again. That's great. The bikes are getting more aero and less, gram focused. We're not drilling holes in our parts anymore. I never did that, but that was a thing for a while. Um, and then in general, I think like people doing the gravel and people doing Strava and looking more at PRs instead of just because there's less racing.
Mhm.
At least in the U.S., there's more kind of attainable, be the best me kind of stuff, which definitely is where I landed at a certain age, but also where it's probably best for most people to not compare yourself with Tade.
Right.
Um,
Hey,
yeah,
speaking of road racing, did you see, I think it was yesterday or the day before, the announcement that there was a group that was going to bring the Tour of Colorado back in 2026?
I saw it. I didn't click on it because I'll believe it when I see it. Not to be like skeptical. I heard the Tour of California was coming back like 6 times.
Yeah.
I
Oh
kept
man.
getting messages about it, and I just don't want to get my hopes up.
Yeah.
I'd love to
The,
see it, obviously.
the details were really thin. It was a event group from London, from
Okay,
what I could gather, and they did was get the approval of the governor to support the race, and they haven't acquired any sponsors or really probably figured out how much it's going to cost to put on.
right.
So I would love to see it.
Yeah,
But
it's different. Like the European events, because cycling is cool in Europe. They get money from the cities, and the cities are happy with the exposure they get from the events. And it's just not like that here. It's just I there was a group that was trying to acquire my Fondo. This is years and years ago, but it was like a UK, and I gave him all the numbers, and he's like, going on, and he's like, the only thing I'm missing here is how much does Malibu pay you? I was like, no, they hate us. They charge me a shit ton. Like they
Right.
don't. It's the opposite of whatever you're used to, but it's also everything. It just
Yeah.
makes events like that's why I think the racing scene has kind of turned into gravel here and into smaller towns, the small town takeover thing. But it's just people aren't tuning in the U.S. to bike racing as much as in Europe. So that's what everyone's up against. So I hope the Tour of Colorado folks figure it out. If anywhere should work, I would say it would be Colorado first, California second, as far as
Yeah.
like places where cycling's welcome.
Anywhere would be great. I mean,
Yeah,
remember the tour of Missouri? I mean,
well, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, that was kind of a lot of small towns that got something out of it.
yeah,
But none of
yeah.
those
Anything
sustained.
would.
I assume there's a reason. So I don't know what they would be able to do differently in 2026 um, that wasn't already tried and and maybe failed. But
Yeah, yeah. What's I think we kind of covered this, but what's one training or nutrition myth that you believed as a pro cyclist that you since changed your mind about? It's probably what we've kind of been talking
yeah,
about,
it'd be
right?
the fasted thing. And I honestly like I never felt like that was true, but I just did what I was told. Um, and the eating your carb, like none of that really made sense at the time. And I remember like when I was like probably my best year looking back was when I was on Bissell, as far as just like my power output and just how well I was riding consistently. And that year we only like it was First Endurance was our nutrition sponsor. It was my first year working with them, and they had this like gel flask, and
Hmm.
all I had in my pockets that whole year was gel, and that went fine. And after that, we're on the cheese and ham sandwiches in Europe, and I wouldn't say I struggled because it was just I did struggle, but it wasn't nutrition. That's because
Right.
I'm racing Contador. Uh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
looking back, it's like, yeah, if I just kept going with the syrupy sugar, I bet I would have been better off.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny listening to the world tour teams now explain what they're doing and how that's improved and why it's different than it was 5 years ago. It's like we've been doing this for 15 years and y'all are now just figuring it out.
Yeah, there's stuff they're
Yeah.
late to. I guess you asked earlier about like a trend I roll my eyes at. It's the crank length thing. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of like all the equipment stuff. The aero helmet with the face mask with the UCI is obviously going to outlaw in 5 minutes, and like I don't think anybody bought those. Remember they had like a netting with an eye and a mouth hole
Oh
because
yeah.
they're trying to cover
Oh
all
my
the
gosh, the
skin.
specialized helmet.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought Giro did whatever. I'm picturing a Jumbo Visma, like the weird, just all the weird stuff. I guess what I roll my eyes at is like I try to zoom out and talking about how cycling isn't cool in the U.S. and I try to think about like, okay, if I had never followed this sport and I flipped it on and I saw a guy in a space helmet with a mask over his face, like I would flip it back off. It's just like if I didn't know it, and so I try to think like, and I know technology is important and all that stuff, but if we're trying to think about like what people want to see in the sport, what the fans want to watch, there should just be an element of like, well, that's silly. That doesn't make sense. Like 6 hour ride with no food. That's silly. Uh,
Yeah.
and then like Craig, like I'm sure there's science with uh, what I'm sure Tade knows what he's doing. Put it that way.
Yeah.
But it's also, you're looking at the efforts that they're doing for, I guess, for the average weekend warrior or even myself to switch cranks. All I've done all those years is train my legs to spin perfect circles at exactly this measurement. So like it's kind of a big decision, and it's not like I want to switch between bikes. Like I'd have to do all of them. It'd be a calculated thing, and the inputs that I have aren't the same as Tade's. Like I'm just
Right.
not doing. It might make sense for him because he can be super efficient on short cranks because he has ridden 25 hours a week since he was 14 years old,
Yeah.
and that's in there. Or he's not sprinting as much, right? He's doing these just super long endurance efforts, so that'll balance out. Whereas like, well, I'm doing a 30-minute KOM with no headwind. Uh, so I think people are eager to like oh, that worked for him, that's going to work for me, or people like experimenting with themselves, so that's part of it. I like to try stuff,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's like, oh, if I buy these new cranks, that's going to change my life. That's going to
No.
suddenly be the thing that it's consistency and hard work, and then you get into the marginal stuff,
Yeah.
which
I
all does
mean,
add up.
they're talking about him using what was the crank length? Like 155, 160?
I lost track. It gets shorter.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of a fish story. Every time I hear it,
Yeah.
it'll just be this one
Yeah.
day, and yeah, there's something to it, but it's also on 185s he would drop me. So and
Oh
on
gosh.
150s he
Yeah.
would drop me, and on
Mhm.
110s so it's like, let's be honest here.
Yeah. So just to set the record straight for the listeners, what crank length are you on right now?
I'm on 175s my whole career, but I'm six
Mhm.
one and I ride a 56 bike with a super long stem. Like, if you heard Tade's riding a 170 millimeter stem, that wouldn't be right for you. It's just like, it's your body type, it's your physiology, and people are welcome to try stuff. But it's also like, especially, I guess the crank length thing, the reason that's the eye roll for me is like, it's size specific, and
Mhm.
it's, the length of femurs, there's all kinds of stuff like that just doesn't apply to everyone. So like, some trends like make sense for all people, and other nutrition is going to apply similarly for most folks.
Mhm.
Whereas like your bike size
Yeah.
it's super personal. Your shoe
That
size, that kind of stuff. Don't follow a trend on shoe size.
that reminds me of when Chris Froome posted that picture of him eating a poached egg on the rest day of the Tour de France, and everyone went keto
Right,
following that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might have just turned that on for the camera and had a big bowl of oatmeal after.
Yeah. Right.
Um,
Yeah. So, folks, yeah, don't follow the trends necessarily. And if you need some backup advice, ask Phil or Coach Cat or me.
I'm gonna get 100 messages about cranks.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Phil, thanks so much for being on the pod. It was great to catch up with you and hear what's going on.
Back at you. Good to see your face. Haven't aged a bit since 2019. Well, yeah, we'll do it more often. I'm
Yeah,
looking
you
forward to
got
this
it.
next 6 week campaign with Coach Cat going up to June.
Yeah. So, listeners, Phil is going to work hard, ride fast, have fun, be flexible with his training, not take it too seriously, but he's still really competitive. So, he's going to want to get results, and you can too. So, check us out on fastcatcoaching.com/app. The first month is free and no credit card is required. You can build a custom training plan, just like what Phil is doing, and then you can use all the technology that he is using to get his Tour de France PRs. We'll call them PRs.
Yeah, that's safe. Everything's a PR if you never go back. That's my new motto.
Oh yeah, yeah. First time, first ride, it's a
Yeah,
PR. It'll always stay
PR.
that
Hmm.
way.
All
Well,
right,
awesome,
thanks, buddy.
man. Thanks so much for being on the pod, and best of luck going over there in the tour. And we look forward to following along.
Back at you. Talk soon, but mostly with Coach Cat.
There you go.
Not when it's ready.
All right, listeners. Thanks a lot, and we will be back here next week.